Story 1. I work for a convenience store that has a strict, always comply with robbers policy. I think it's because it's cheaper for them to deal with losing whatever's in the register than fighting a lawsuit from an employee getting hurt defending it. I've worked here off and on for the last 5 years, and I've been in the store for 6 robberies. They're usually pretty straightforward. A person comes in, says, "Give me the money." We do. They leave. We call the police, and the police don't do anything. We have cameras, but this neighborhood has such bigger problems that they never follow up on petty theft. One of those times, though, the young person didn't wear a mask, just a hoodie. He comes in with the hood up, a young individual who couldn't have been more than 18, 20 years old. He paces around for a while, I guess trying to get his nerve up. I figured he was an underage kid trying to work up the courage to buy some alcoholic beverages at first. It was really early in the morning, and we were the only people in the store. He approaches the register and says he has a firearm, doesn't pull it out, was probably bluffing, and that he won't use it if I just give him money. Talking all tough about, "Don't try anything today, I'm not the one," etc. I pop open the register, and he jumps behind the counter to take the money out. As he's doing this, an elderly woman comes in. Now I was getting really nervous because I didn't want the elderly lady to be in a dangerous situation. But before I could react, she recognizes the young man. She runs up to him and goes, "Oh, Noah, hello dear, how are you?" And the young man just freezes behind the counter, hands full of cash. She's older and I guess hard of hearing, so she's shouting, "I didn't realize you'd gotten a job. Good for you, dear. You know, I just saw your mama the other day, and she didn't mention it." He's like, "No, I don't," but she isn't listening. "Your mama never tells me anything." "I don't work, don't interrupt me, hun. Anyways, your mama never tells me anything." And she's just chattering on, and she starts shopping. I'm just standing there frozen, waiting to see how this plays out, with the guy still behind the register with me. The young man was almost a foot taller than me, and I didn't want to get into an altercation if I could help it. She goes through and she's shopping, and she goes, "Noah, hun, could you help me reach this please?" And he's like, "I don't," and she's like, "What, are you going to make me beg here?" So he goes over and starts helping her get things from high shelves. She's like, "Is this really the best price you got for this?" And he's like, yeah." While he's doing this, I call the police. I think he knows I must have been doing that because he's beyond antsy. At one point, he tried to leave, but she was like, "Hold on, don't clock out yet. I'll just be a minute. I want to see you at work. This is so exciting. You're all grown up." So he's standing there awkward and panicked, trying to make a decision. Eventually, she goes to check out, and I scan her items, keeping an eye on him. She goes, "Oh, no, can Noah check me out? He's my friend's son. I didn't know I was visiting him at work. This is so exciting." Wanting to keep things cool until she was out of the store on the off chance the young man did have a weapon of some kind or wasn't stable, I just stepped aside and let him check her out. He didn't really know how to use the scanner or anything, but he got through it. She leaves. Once she's walked out, he runs out of the store and jumps into a car. He didn't get any money from us. It was another 20 minutes before the police got there, so it wouldn't have mattered either way. But that was the most memorable robbery for me, as robberies go. Not sure if this story fits this sub, but when I saw the sub, I had to share this one. I mean, he technically was working, kind of, just not for us, haha. Story 2. I work in an information technology contracting company and specialize in quality control and software testing. This happened about 10 years ago. I was hired by a company client as a member of their governance team. Basically, we were to assess the company they hired big tech to create their software and their testing standards and plans. Governance teams are hard to utilize correctly, and only any good if the person you report to understands. The client was my customer, and Alan was my boss from the company. So they decided to change our role to working directly with big tech on their test teams to watch what they were doing and bring up any issues to Alan. I am packing up to leave one day, and the big tech project manager appears out of nowhere and asks to have a meeting. I had never spoken to the guy before, but I knew who he was. A bit surprised, I asked if it could wait until tomorrow as the day was over, and he said that is one of the things I need to discuss. A bit miffed, I agree. So we went into a meeting room with windows where you can still see the office floor. He asks me to look out of the office and tell him what I see. No idea what he wanted me to say. I was a bit dumbfounded, so I said, "People working." He nods his head, repeating it, and then asks why I am not with them and was going home, and why I was not dressed appropriately for a client's site and so unprofessional. Now I see the issue. He obviously thinks I work for him and not the client directly. I explain that I have done my work for the day and ask if he expects me to stay doing nothing. He goes into a long-winded explanation of how the longer we are in the office, the more they have to pay. Intrigued, I ask, does that mean I would get paid more, or is it that I should do unpaid overtime so big tech makes more money? He explained I was a salaried employee and should be grateful for the experience I was getting with their world-class company. I ask again, then if I have no more work, should I stay to charge the client more? And what should I do while I have nothing to do? He is getting a little frustrated with me, and his tone is getting more aggressive, and said I should just look busy while I stay late. That is when I said, "You aren't my boss. I work for a client, and Alan is my boss, not you." Alan was the person he reported progress and billing to. I continued, I was hired to make sure Big Tech was accurately creating the software and not overcharging the client. You have just outlined how you are overcharging and tried to reprimand me for not taking part. You accuse me of being unprofessional and not dressing professionally. My belief is you are acting unprofessionally, and it doesn't matter what you look like. Your insistence on the appearance of being busy to hide inaction illustrates this. You also appear to be taking advantage of your employees and, importantly, you do not know who does and doesn't work for you. He freaked out completely and started asking if we could keep this among ourselves and that if I bad-mouthed the company, I would affect my chances of getting work in the future as they are so big. I explained it would not be very professional of me and that I would be accurately reporting on what was said. I asked if there was anything more he wanted to discuss as he called this meeting, and I normally charge for overtime because I don't like to be taken advantage of. Then I left the room laughing, telling him he may have some things to explain tomorrow. When I arrived the next day, he wasn't in his office, which was very unusual as he was there first thing in the morning and last in the evening. I open up the calendar and look up Big Tech meetings and see that the project manager has canceled all his meetings for the day. I ring my boss and ask if he knows why the project manager is not in today and suggest we should have a meeting. He is up for the meeting but said the project manager has had some family emergency, and a new person is going to be the project manager in the next few days. We have our meeting, and I explain what happened. He was furious. He wanted the names of the people who were staying late and just surfing the internet. Now I work side by side with these people and knew they didn't have any choice. Explaining they weren't the issue, but being forced to stay by Big Tech made them stay, and that they were actually good at the work and realistically replacing them would stall the project. So he decided to get the timesheets and billing together. Suddenly all the billing reports were password protected, and they couldn't get in touch with the project manager due to the family emergency. A lot of reports have gone missing from SharePoint, all with the project manager's name showing a very late hour. He asked me to try and find the information while he contacted Big Tech to explain what is going on. As I am looking through SharePoint, I notice that the project manager is still logged in and actively deleting files. So I contact the security section to kick him out of the system and get backups of SharePoint. I go to my boss's office and he is on the phone to Big Tech, and he puts it on speakerphone and tells them I am on the call. He explains that Big Tech can't contact the project manager due to the family issue. So I point out he was just on our network deleting files 20 minutes ago. Silence is deafening from the other end. I tell them the files deleted and password protected now are all being restored, and we would have them in a couple of hours. More silence. My boss then says, are they concerned about the content of these files, and why is the project manager logging on to their servers deleting files? More silence. I could go into the whole thing, but basically, piles of documentation proving overcharging. The project manager had been too ignorant to understand the client's SharePoint was not his Big Tech SharePoint because, they have the same name. He was not having a family emergency. Shocker, right? And they were hiding him and letting him resign with a package. Now everyone knew what happened, and you would think the staff of Big Tech would hate me, but the opposite happened. They were told not to do any overtime without 3 signatures for approval from the client. It effectively stopped all overtime and made them all very happy. I have met many of them since on other projects, and they still thank me for getting the project manager out of the way. He did get other jobs, but was let go several times because, for all his talk of being able to get projects over the deadline, he had no ability and would just tell people to work longer hours. That is not sustainable and doesn't address problems with specifications and design issues. Story 3. Unlike many folks here, I don't really work retail or even shop that much. I do get mistaken at Best Buy sometimes, even though I've never worn blue polo shirts to that store. Apparently standing near the aisle browsing stuff with a serious expression is enough to have random people come up to you to ask questions, and I usually reply, "I don't work here, but what was your question anyway?" And they generally apologize, chuckle, and I answer what I can. But that's not the story today. About 15 years ago, I was working in a logistics company. I had missed the lunch truck that came by, so I decided to drive to lunch then come back. A coworker said he'll come with me. I said I'll see him out front. So I went to my car, which was a small sedan champagne color. I got it started and air conditioning blasting. It's a hot area, and I drove to the employee entrance and waited. The door opened, closed, and someone sat down on the seat. I put the car into gear and was about to ask where we should go when I realized that wasn't the coworker. That was the company president, aka Big Boss. He had already buckled himself in when our eyes met. Neither of us said anything for a second. My hand automatically shifted back to park. "Ah, boss, what are you doing in my car?" He mumbled, "Oops, sorry," unbuckled himself, and got out. Just then, my coworker arrived, looking at my boss getting into another car, a white Lexus. My coworker asked, "What was that?" I shrugged. No idea. I guess he was looking for his lunch ride. So, I do work here, but I am not your lunch ride. Story 4. Not 100% sure if this is the right sub, but it happened at work, and I'm this far now, so I get to work at about 6 a.m. every day. I don't start till 6:50, but I like to mentally prepare myself for the shenanigans of the day. As I'm sitting in my car, with my headlights off because I'm not an inconsiderate jerk, a BMW pulls in next to me. This in itself is not surprising as we literally build them here. I don't really pay any attention until someone knocks very hard on my passenger window. I roll my window down, and the guy rudely says, "Your headlights are blinding me. If you don't turn them off, I'm going to call your section manager." Now, normally, I just politely correct him and go on about my business. But today I was feeling particularly snippy, so I decided to at least get a laugh out of it. I responded, "My headlights? Huh." I then got out of my car and walked around to the front of my car to look at my clearly off headlights. When I got in front of the car, I mockingly made it seem like I was being blinded by the headlights. I said, "Oh, these things sure are bright. Sorry about that, man." This guy was absolutely shocked that my headlights were actually off. He just mumbled something and then walked to the guy next to me. Edit. So it's come to my attention that I didn't explain this very well. I apologize for that, and I'm here to clear that up. Story 5. Now, I am pretty much a fixture in the local grocery store. Almost every day I am there because I like to cook, but I don't always remember to get all the ingredients and have to go back. I am in the grocery store so much I know most of the staff by name. A couple of my neighbors even work there. But anyway, I was walking around the aisles picking up beef broth, vegetables, and whatnot when I saw a lady wandering the aisle aimlessly, so I thought I would be considerate and ask her if I could help her. The elderly lady was looking for baking goods. I know the store like the back of my hand and know where it is. As we walked to the baking aisle, we struck up a conversation. The sweet elderly lady asked me if I would help her with her shopping because she had never been in the store before. I said sure, why not? I wasn't in any big hurry. I live in the apartments right behind the store. Actually behind the store. I can stand on my patio, take off a shoe, and actually hit the back of it. We wound up doing all of her shopping together. She began to tell me about her kids and grandkids, and she was soon to be a great-grandmother. She is a very pleasant woman. I actually learned a few things she told me that she had seen in her lifetime. We walked the aisles taking the items on her list and throwing them in the shopping cart, and she would check the items off. Finally, about half an hour later, we proceeded to check out. I told her I would be right back because I almost forgot what I had gone there for. As I returned to the register, the elderly lady was telling the manager what a nice employee I was and didn't want me to get in trouble for taking up my time. Dean, the manager, smiled and told her that I didn't work there. The elderly lady looked at me puzzled and apologized to me for taking up so much of my personal time. I told her I was in no rush and that I live in the apartments nearby. It turns out she just moved several apartments away across the apartment complex. We walked home to our apartments. She smiled and asked me why I helped her if I didn't work there. I told her that my parents raised me to help others without reward. I gave her the groceries. I told her if she needed help or wanted to go shopping, let me know. The elderly woman said she did her shopping every Monday and if I wouldn't mind going and keeping her company. I told her it was very kind of her to try and keep me from getting fired even though I don't work there. So now I have a shopping buddy and someone to talk with and share coupons. I know this doesn't have a screaming entitled Karen or Brat, but I just wanted to share that I don't work here. So thanks for reading. Have a great day.